Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is and whatever part of the world you're at right now. Welcome back. And today we're going to be reviewing parallel lines and transversals. So let's go ahead and hop on in and take a look at number 10. First one says, use the diagram below to classify each pair of angles. Now, whenever you're dealing with parallel lines and a transversal, I would always suggest drawing two circles. And what I mean by that is putting a circle on the top group and then a circle on the bottom group. Next, I'm going to shade or highlight only two sections in each circle, okay? So this part here, I'm going to shade it like this, okay? Shading and then shading here, right? So now, I use this strategy here because it's going to help me identify which angles are congruent and, which angle pairs could potentially be congruent, which angle pairs could potentially be supplementary. And remember, supplementary means that they add to equal 180, all right? Now, as I said before, you want to start by doing the two circles in the shading. However, let's say you can also do your circles this way as well. And really, it's not the circles, it's more so the shading. Like the first time I shaded the top circle I shaded 1 and 6, but now I'm shading 2 and 5 and 7 and 4, okay? So it doesn't matter how you do the shading, but just know that all of the numbers or the angles that have the same color, like all of the blue shaded angles, are equal. They're congruent to each other. So 4 and 7 and 2 and 5, or 2 and 7, or 7 and 5, or 2 and 4, 4 and 5. All of those angles are congruent to each other. Now, that's the same can be said about all the non-shaded 1 and 6 and 3 and 8. All of those are also congruent. Okay, so it doesn't matter how you do the shading as long as you put your circles and you shade two of the angles, and whatever two angles you shade in the top circle, shade the same two in the bottom. Okay, let me fix this one. Oops. All right, so with that being said, now we can go ahead and look at these relationships here. We got A, B, C, and D. So for A, we're looking at angles 1 and 3. Well, we already know that they're both congruent to one another. Okay, so they are congruent, right? And remember, the symbol for congruent is the equal sign with the squiggly line on top, okay? So let me make that a little better like that. They're congruent. Now, these also have a unique name to their relationship. They're congruent, but more specifically, these are called corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. Okay, and I'm going to use the angle symbol. So with corresponding angles, now, if we look, what other relationships or what other angle pairs also have share a similar pattern? Now, with corresponding angles, to point out, if you notice that in the top circle, angle 1 is in the top left-hand corner. And if you look in the bottom circle, angle 3 is in the top left-hand corner. So they're both in the same position in their respective circles, okay? So if we're looking at other corresponding angles could be 5 and 7, right? We could also say other corresponding angles could be 6 and 8, all right? We could also say 2 and 4, all right? All of those other three pairs would also be corresponding angles. Because if you look, for example, 6 and 8, 6 is in the bottom right-hand corner and 8 is in the bottom right-hand corner. So they're congruent, which furthers our fact that they are corresponding angles, okay? All right, now let's take a look at the relationship between 5 and 4. Well, we can tell already that they're both unshaded. They're both white, right? Which means that they're also congruent because they're still the same color. So we're going to put our little congruent symbol here. All right, we're gonna write the word congruent because we know that they're equal. So whatever the angle measure is for angle 4, it's the same for angle 5. Now, what type of congruent relationship do these have? These two are called alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior. Okay, EXT angles, and I'll use the angle symbol. All right. Now, alternate exterior angles are on the outsides of the parallel lines. So, for example, if I could here, I'm going to try to do my best. Imagine that you don't see this middle piece here. Anything on the outside of the parallel lines is called the exterior, okay? So 5 and 4 are alternate exterior angles. The only other pair of alternate exterior angles would be 1 and 8. If you notice, they're congruent. Both of them are shaded blue, okay, the same color. And they're on opposite sides of the transversal. And just in case you don't know what the transversal is the line that cuts the two parallel lines, okay? So we have our two parallel lines here, right? Here are our two parallel lines. The black line is the transversal. The black line cuts the two parallel lines. So the black line is the transversal. The two gold or yellow looking lines are our parallel lines, all right? So now that we got that out of the way, once again, 1 and 8 would also be alternate exterior angles. Okay, so I hope that helps somebody out there. Now let's go ahead and take a look at 6 and 7. Now, 6 and 7 are different colors. So anytime when you're working with parallel lines and transversals, and you use this strategy that I'm showing you, where you draw the circles and you do the shading, if you have two angle measures that are two different colors, these angles are said to be supplementary, okay? And supplementary means that they add to equal 180, okay? So these two angles are supplementary. Now, they also have a particular name to their relationship, all right? Now, if you notice, so these two angles are not on the exterior, they're actually on the interior. They're between the two parallel lines, okay? So these are what we call consecutive, okay? They're not, alternate means opposites. For example, if we look on the inside, 3 and 6 or 2 and 7 would be alternate interior angles because they're on two different sides of the transversal. The transversal, remember, I'm going to highlight the transversal with gold this time. If you see that 6 and 7 are both on the same side, so when two angles are on the same side of the transversal, they're called consecutive. And since they're both located on the inside, these would be consecutive interior angles. INT, short for interior. And I'll use the angle symbol, okay? So consecutive interior angles, all right? Now, our other pair of consecutive interior angles would also be 2 and 3. Because if you notice, 2 and 3 are on the same side of the transversal, but they're two different colors, okay? So those are considered consecutive interior angles. And consecutive interior angles are supplementary, which means they add to equal 180. Now, let's take a look at the last pair. And for this one, we're talking about angles 3 and 6. Well, if we notice, once again, angles 3 and 6 are on the inside, okay? But they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So once again, if they're the same color, we already know that they're congruent, they're equal. And I kind of alluded to this when we were doing C, but these are called alternate interior angles. Okay, and alternate interior angles are congruent, and they have to be on the inside of the parallel lines, but opposite sides of the transversal. Okay. All right. So that was a brief little review about parallel lines and transversals, let's go ahead and move into number 11 and see how we can use that same strategy with the circles to help us answer number 11, okay? So once again, I'm gonna do my shading. I'm gonna use yellow this time, or purple, excuse me. And what I'm gonna do, I'm still gonna use my little highlighter. And since we're talking about angle 9, I'm gonna highlight angle 9 first, and then I'm gonna highlight angle 11. Now, all the other circles have to follow the same pattern. The top left-hand corner needs to be shaded, and the bottom right-hand corner needs to be shaded. So if I was talking about the middle circle, that would be numbers 5 and number 7, and then number 1 and number 3 in the first circle all the way to the left. Now, if I want to know like for example, all of the angles that are shaded blue are all 76. So I could put 76 right here, 76 right there, 76 by the 7, 76 by the 5, 76 by the 1, and 76 by the 3. So 76, 76, 76, 76, and 76 degrees, okay? Let's put our degree symbol. Now, if we want to find the other angles, we simply need to do 180 minus 76. All of these angle pairs, 9 and 10, 12 and 11, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, they're all supplementary, which means that they have to add to equal 180. So when we subtract, that is going to give us 104. Okay, so that means that all these other angles, all the even number angles, are 104 degrees. Okay, and that's how you do that. So that's one of the reasons why I like using the circles with the shading, because it helps me identify the congruent angles and the supplementary angles really quick. All right, so we're going to wrap up part 1 right now. Be sure to come back for part 2, where we go over questions 12, 13, 14, and then we'll have a part 3 where we go over number 15. All right, see you all back for part 2.